So my name is Alicia Liu, and I thought that tonight's event had a naming convention, so I have titled my talk accordingly. This talk is not about imposter syndrome. So 2 years ago, I wrote a post called Overcoming Imposter Syndrome, and it became very popular on Medium, where it has worked. And a lot of things came out of that, and after that, it seemed like imposter syndrome was everywhere, like it had become this topic du jour among women in tech. And for a long time, I refrained from talking about it. Actually, this is the first talk that I'm giving about imposter syndrome. For a long time, I thought I could only talk about technical subjects, because otherwise, how will I know? Or how would people know that I'm technical, even though I have more than a dozen years of professional coding experience? Go figure. But my main problem with imposter syndrome and how it's become such a popular topic is that most of the time it's still framed as just a lack of confidence, and that it's something that women have to address. If only women could get over their lack of confidence, then everything would be fine. And so I wrote a follow-up. This was in response to a Canadian national newspaper interviewing me about my thoughts on imposter syndrome. And they didn't really publish all the things I had to say, so I had to publish it myself. And my whole thing was that you can't just frame imposter syndrome as a confidence problem. And so much of what you hear about it, about what's holding women back, not just in tech, but across like corporate America, is focusing on that, is just this lack of confidence, and that it somehow manifests itself in this thing called imposter syndrome. And when I just took a cursory look at all the conference workshops that were happening at Grace Hopper today, especially the career track, a lot of them were about how to build confidence, how to be more confident as a speaker, how to be more confident when you talk to your boss, how to be more confident when you're doing your salary negotiations and all that. But what's left unsaid in all this is that women should act more like men, because studies have shown that men naturally have this confidence. Actually, they're naturally overconfident. They're not more competent, but they're more confident. And look, men are successful. They fill most of the spots at the top of the corporate ladder, white men specifically. So if we could just learn this skill that we don't have, confidence, then we can be successful too. And there are a lot of books and articles and so on that teach women how to do this. And implicit in all this is that men don't have to do something to be confident. They just naturally have it. They don't question whether it's their place to talk. They don't question whether someone might doubt what they have to say. They don't question whether they should interrupt something to make sure that their opinion is heard. They just make it happen. So women should make that happen too. And oftentimes this translates into this, which is fake it till you make it. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard this. But what I'm really struggling to understand is that imposter syndrome is feeling like a fraud. It's feeling that you're fake, that you don't belong. So how exactly does faking more solve the problem of feeling fake in the first place? Now you have two problems. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's like if you wanted to learn how to be happy and you weren't happy, would you go look at the happy people and copy their mannerisms? Oh, they laugh a lot, they smile, so you do that too. Would that teach you to be happy, truly happy, or would that just make you a very convincing hypocrite? The thing is, the happiness that they have comes from some source. Something makes them happy. Something internal or external, whatever it is, something makes them happy, and that is what manifests itself in the behavior that they have. So when it comes to confidence, what is that source? What is that actual thing that makes you confident? Natural confidence comes from accomplishment. You have to actually do it. And the more you do it, the more confident you are that you can do it again and again and again. But why the gap then? Women are smart, women are accomplished. We are starting to get more of the college degrees, like you've heard all the same stats. So why this gap in confidence? What is the source for men's confidence that women don't seem to have? And in one word, that's privilege. And this is the thing that we can't actually fake because it's not up to us. Privilege is something that's afforded to you by other people. That's a missing piece. So I very much doubt that by trying to emulate these behaviors, that by just trying to be more confident and acting that way, that somehow this path will make women equal or bring more equality to everyone in a system that overwhelmingly favors white men currently. And maybe a few women or a few minorities will get through it and they will be overwhelmingly confident and they can do it. But we know from studies that when women act in a very manly way, when they are just as aggressive, when they are just as overconfident, that they're treated differently. That both men and women perceive them in a more negative manner. So we know that this doesn't work. I just thought this effect was really cool, and when else am I ever going to use it? The other thing about imposter syndrome is that somehow along the way, it's gotten to be a catch-all label for any time you have even a shred of doubt about your knowledge, about your abilities, about your capability to accomplish something. And when I look at articles about imposter syndrome, this stat gets thrown around a lot. 70%, that's a lot of people experience imposter syndrome at some point. But I could not find the source of this study. Where is this study? And they vary. They say, 70% of Americans, 70% of maybe it's even like highly accomplished people. So the only thing that I could find that was even remotely close was that a Harvard professor would ask his class whether to raise their hand if they thought that they felt like they got in by fluke. And so 2/3 of the class, almost all the time, would raise their hands. But a Harvard class, like a class of 100, 200 people, is hardly representative of everyone. But in certain circles, academia, tech, where there are a lot of high-performing people, this has become like kind of an outsized problem where we just feel like, oh, everyone has imposter syndrome. And I just don't think that's true at all. The seed of imposter syndrome and why I think it comes about is from doubt. You will experience doubt about whether you can do it, whether you're meant to be in this field, whether you can learn that new framework, or whatever it is. But most of the time, those feelings of doubt are totally normal, because when you're trying to do something new, something you've never done before, something that is incredibly difficult to do, it is a natural feeling. It is natural to feel doubt. That is actually what normal people do. And when we pathologize this doubt and we call it a syndrome, something to be fixed, something that's not even a real recognized psychological problem, by the way, then we're really saying that what you feel, those normal feelings, there's something wrong with you. And the thing is, if you didn't feel a shred of doubt when you're trying to do something new, then wouldn't you just be a really arrogant prick? And yet, we say that when you have these feelings of doubt, that you're the one that's something wrong with you, and that we should aspire to be an arrogant prick. And I can understand that. Doubt is an uncomfortable feeling. We don't want doubt. It's a sign of insecurity, and we want to be secure. We have all these things, like the Department of Homeland Security that's supposed to make us more secure. We have Social Security, which is shrinking. We have job security that's apparently gone out the window. Our financial assets, every single financial tradable asset is called a security, and yet look at our financial system. So the thing comes back to, we can't actually guarantee security because the future is uncertain. So doubt is just something that we have to learn to live with, and it's normal. And that brings me to that doubt is not, in fact, something to be rid of. Am I changing these? I don't know what's happening. Doubt is not something to be rid of. It's something that we actually have to face and to accept. Because it's when we have doubt that we actually think about, maybe what I thought is not all there is to it. Maybe there's another way of looking at something. Maybe I should change my mind about something. And what is really interesting is actually doubt is the thing that made me realize that I might actually have imposter syndrome in the first place. Because I learned the concept of imposter syndrome many, many years ago, and I was like, oh, I don't have that, I don't have a problem. I just didn't think I was meant to be a software engineer for whatever reason. And it was doubt, that seed of doubt, that made me realize, is that really true? Is that really a fact? Or is that an assumption? Is it a false assumption? So doubt is the seed to change, and that's really powerful, because changing your mind is one of the most powerful things that we can do. That's the force for social change. And in fact, when I think about it, most of the turning points in my life have been filled with doubt. I doubted whether I would get into my top choice engineering school. I doubted whether I would get a job after the tech crash in 2002. I doubted a lot of these things, and that's what actually pushed me to study harder or prepare more for interviews. And it was when I was overconfident, when I was going into my senior year and I thought I had all this experience, that I didn't have to prepare that much for interviews anymore. That's when I failed. I didn't pass a single interview that round when I thought that I had it all figured out. So doubt is the thing that actually pushes us to not be complacent. It's a very useful tool. And the reason that so many high-performing people have imposter syndrome is not that they have it despite of imposter syndrome, is that their success may actually be in large part because of it. That because they have this nagging doubt about their capability, their ability, that it actually pushes them to do more. And we forget that. In anything, there's a good and a bad side. So doubt can be scary, and it can be extremely uncomfortable, and it makes you question things that you never thought to question before. But I don't believe that the way to deal with doubt is to push it away, to cover it up, and to pretend it's not there, and to just act all confident. I believe it's only that when we acknowledge doubt, when we truly accept it, that maybe it'll lead us to somewhere new. Maybe it'll lead us to change our mind. And that's really what we need more of, because we have a lot of problems. We have a lot of problems in our industry, in the world even, because people are very stuck in the way that they're thinking about things. But the only way to get better is through change. So I think a lot of these problems are caused by overconfidence. So now I don't think what we need more of is confidence. I think it might be time for some doubt.